You know, in the history of database tech, some releases are just, well, they're just updates. But others, they're total turning points. Today, we're diving into a real turning point, SQL Server 2019. This wasn't just another version number. Nope, it was a complete rethinking of what a database could even be in our modern world. So let's explore how Microsoft took on the chaos of modern data and ended up redefining the database itself.
To really get why 2019 was such a big deal, you have to remember the world it was born into. I mean, by the late 2010s, businesses were absolutely drowning in data. And it wasn't just sitting in nice, neat SQL tables anymore. Oh no, it was everywhere, in Hadoop clusters, in NoSQL databases, scattered all over cloud storage. This created total chaos, making it almost impossible to get a single, clear picture of, well, anything. And the result? Missed opportunities, huge inefficiencies, and a whole lot of headaches for data teams.
So right there, that was the big challenge Microsoft decided to tackle. How do you build a platform that doesn't make you cram all your data into one box, but instead lets you manage and query it right where it already lives? This meant they had to make a fundamental shift, from being just a database to becoming a true data platform. And the answer they came up with? Whoa. It was ambitious, a real moonshot for the time. It was a brand new concept called the Big Data Cluster, and it was this incredible attempt to bring the structured world of SQL Server and the wild, unstructured universe of big data under one single, manageable roof. Okay, so what in the world is a big data cluster? Well, think of it like a complete data analytics package all in one box. It takes the super reliable, battle-tested SQL Server engine and smashes it together with Apache Spark, which is the go-to for processing massive data sets, and HDFS for storing all that data. And the glue holding this whole thing together? Kubernetes, the industry standard for managing containerized applications. These three pillars really are the heart of the whole system. You get the SQL engine for your super fast transactions, you get Spark to run these massive complex analytics jobs, and you get HDFS acting as a giant data lake. It was truly the best of both worlds all working together. The key takeaway is that you no longer had to choose between a powerful relational database and a scalable big data solution. You could have both, managed as one thing. But wait, how do you actually get these completely different systems to talk to each other? I mean, you can't just throw them in the same environment and hope they become friends. There was a secret sauce, a magic ingredient that really unified this whole platform, and it was a radically beefed up feature called Polybase. Okay, now this is where it gets really crazy. Before 2019, Polybase was pretty cool. It could talk to Hadoop. But with this release, the floodgates just blew wide open. I mean, look at this. Oracle, Mongo, Teradata. So imagine this. You need to join your customer data from your main Oracle database with website click data you have stored in Mongo. Before 2019, that was a complex, painful multi-step nightmare. After 2019, it was as simple as writing a single SQL query. This literally turned SQL Server into a universal hub for all your data. But unifying all that data, that was only half the story. To be a truly modern platform, SQL Server also had to get a lot smarter and faster under the hood. And, just as important, it had to fit into the way modern software is actually built and deployed. So let's see how they pulled that off. So deep down in the core database engine, things got a major intelligence upgrade. And this wasn't just about raw speed. It was about making the database smart enough to optimize itself, to fix its own problems, all thanks to a family of features they called Intelligent Query Processing, or IQP for short. And you can really see the difference here. The old way? It was all manual. You needed expert DBAs to spend hours and hours tuning queries based on static plans that might not be right tomorrow. The new way with IQP is totally adaptive. The engine actually learns. It adjusts memory on the fly, and can even rewrite inefficient code for you. The bottom line is, performance tuning started to become automatic. This was a game changer that freed up countless hours for admins, letting them focus on big-picture architecture instead of tedious manual tweaks. At the same time, the rest of the software world had moved on to CI/CD pipelines. And in the past, let's be honest, the database was always the slow, clunky part of that process. It was hard to version, hard to automate. Well, SQL Server 2019 flipped that on its head by completely embracing containers and Kubernetes, making the database a first-class citizen in any modern workflow. And this really shows you the new reality. You can now be developing on a Mac or a Linux machine, package your entire SQL Server database up into a tiny, lightweight container, and then deploy and scale it with Kubernetes, just like any other modern app. This was a massive, massive leap forward for developer productivity. And wow, there was so much more packed in. Accelerated database recovery, that meant no more sitting around for ages waiting for a rollback after a restart, a huge boost for uptime. Always encrypted with secure enclaves lets you run queries on fully encrypted data, which was a massive win for security and compliance. And that's not even mentioning things like native UTF-8 support and big improvements to graph databases. It was a truly feature-packed release. So when you step back and you put all these pieces together, the data unification, the built-in intelligence, the modern deployment, you really start to see the true legacy of this release. This wasn't just another iteration. It was a complete redefinition. In this quote right here, it just nails it. This wasn't just some marketing slogan, it was a mission statement. Hybrid? Yep, they knew the future was a mix of on-prem and cloud. Multi-model, because hey, data comes in all shapes and sizes. And cloud native? That showed they were all in on the modern, agile way of building software.
And that right there is the ultimate takeaway. This release was the moment that SQL Server officially stepped beyond its traditional role. It was no longer just a place to store your structured data. It became the central platform, the command center, that you could use to manage, query, and analyze pretty much all of an organization's data, no matter where it was or what it looked like.
Of course, an evolution this big didn't just stop in 2019. It set a whole new foundation, which raised the next big question. What comes next? How do you make that cloud integration even deeper? How do you bring things like blockchain-level trust into a traditional database? Those are the questions the next major release would start to answer. But the revolution? It all kicked off right here, with the bold vision laid out in SQL Server 2019.